The following is a presentation of Muddy River News.
Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.
Hi, this is Ron Kinscherf with Muddy River News. This is the Business Spotlight brought to you by Mercantile Bank. We are joined by Nakita Hughes.
Hi.
Healing Hearts, right?
Yes, Healing Hearts Family Counseling.
Just opened up.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us what Healing Hearts Family Counseling is all about?
Healing Hearts Family Counseling is my own private practice that
Okay.
I opened in September in Hannibal. And I specialize in marriage and family therapy, but I can see people of all ages, and I really enjoy helping with relationships.
So what's your background, education-wise? And you got a bunch of letters after your name, too. I saw that.
Yes. I have a master's in marriage and family therapy, and then I have a degree. I'm a marriage and family therapist, but I'm also a licensed professional counselor.
Okay.
And I'm licensed in Illinois and Missouri.
Okay. So do you find there's still a stigma with people about seeking help, or do you think that's a little less than it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I think there's still a stigma, but I think it's a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially after COVID, we've seen a lot of increase in asking for help and reaching out. I think there's more acceptance in the idea that mental health is a very real thing, and it should be treated more like just a medical issue as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just a deficiency in terms of chemical imbalances and stuff like that that people have, correct? That medication could possibly.
Sure, yeah, and it's also the idea of just as if you have diabetes, you might need to take a medication to help with that, or to be able to have somebody to talk to about things that you're dealing with. It's no different.
Yeah. What do you think has helped with the stigma? Do you think it's some of the celebrities coming out, or just better understood? Why do you think people are more acceptable of people that having depression, things like that?
I do think the idea that celebrities coming out has helped a lot. I think sharing your story and being open about, hey, I'm dealing with this too. I think knowing that we're not alone with dealing with mental illness, I think that does help people, knowing that it's okay and it's not something to be ashamed of.
Do you find that a lot of that is a big problem, just people feeling alone, even though they may be a part of a family or in a marriage, or there's just that sense of loneliness?
Sure. And there are certain diagnoses, especially like depression, where isolation is, we want to kind of keep to ourselves, even though we know being out and about and being around other people is going to help us. And so I think just knowing that we're not alone, even if we feel it, is very helpful.
So how do you differentiate between just being sad and being depressed?
So there are certain criteria to look at, but I think knowing, is that just kind of like a momentary blip? Is it just a rough day, or does it last for a certain period of time? And then also, how is it impacting you on a day-to-day basis?
Right. So, and there are some people that are very good at masking that, though. So,
Sure.
In order to help somebody, how do you get through that? If it's my spouse or a son or a friend of mine, you think there's something wrong, but you're not really sure. Is there a way that a non-professional can help with something like that?
I think really just checking in with that person and letting them know, hey, you don't seem like yourself recently. Is everything okay? And letting them know you're there. You may be able to notice things that person may not notice themselves as much, because on the outside, things may seem different. Inside, if you're experiencing something, you may not be able to notice it as easily. So I think just letting them know that you're there and that you're open to talking.
Okay, and to just getting it off their chest, that is even if you're not a licensed professional, that does help.
It does help. I think there are certain signs to be on the lookout for, that are more extreme and bothersome, that you should definitely take steps to help that person. If there are certain warning signs that there's harm to themselves, but just knowing that person's not alone can talk to somebody.
I mean, you hear a lot of times after somebody's taken their life or something along those, I saw those signs, but I didn't know if it was serious enough to do so. I mean, how do you deal with that? Anytime you see a sign, is that something? I mean, you don't want to overreact, obviously, but that's got to be a tough situation.
Yeah, I think that is hard because you're obviously not a trained professional, and so you can't know for sure. But I think letting that person know you're there, and then if they made statements, or sometimes they'll start giving things away, or sometimes even like people seem to be happier or feel like they act like things are better before they do take their lives, and that is common because there's a sense of relief where people have actually made that decision, and so that can be hard for people because they seemed like everything was a lot better.
So family counseling, marriage counseling. When do you? This is a horrible. When do you know you need? I mean, all marriages are spats and things along those lines, and all families have their troubles and trials and tribulations. So, is there a certain point where they should be contacting someone like you? And how do you know what that point is?
Well, I don't ever think there's a bad time to reach out, and it's different for different people. I think many times in marriages, couples will reach out almost when it's too late sometimes.
Right.
And one person will tend to feel like we need counseling sooner than the other person does. And sometimes they'll come in and it's maybe too far gone. And so there's also the idea of coming in for kind of like just premarital or even kind of like a tune-up. And so I think it's a good idea to just kind of...
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
So is that something you would recommend?
I would recommend. I think having like an outside person who can help you navigate those conversations, even before you sit down and like, hey, we're getting married. Like, what does that look like? Our roles, our expectations, who's going to do this? Who's going to do this? Like, what are we expecting in a marriage? Many couples do not have those conversations, which is understandable.
Even if they've been living together, they haven't had those conversations.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, do you often see there's obviously a reason why couples have gotten married, but obviously there can be divisive things that happen during the course of their marriage. Is it just sometimes I just can't help you? I mean, it's just, is that ever
Yes.
I mean, I hate to say that, but.
Right. Well, and I think the goal of marriage counseling or couples counseling is not always to keep the couple together.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to assess, is this the healthiest thing for them? And I always tell couples, like, the relationship is my client, not one of you or the other.
All right.
So there are instances where if there's, abuse or things like that, then I really have to say, like, you need to kind of, take safety steps, and we need to very much end this. But sometimes I'll look at the situation and we'll try and figure out, like, is this the best thing for you guys to stay together? And not that I'm trying to influence them, but help them decide, what do you guys want to do? Is there enough to save? Do you really want to make it work? Sometimes if they decide no, then it's an idea of, like, how can we co-parent? How can we separate amicably?
Right. How much has COVID affected your practice? I mean, have you seen more people than you had prior to COVID? I mean, was it as stressful as you read about on couples and kids and all that type of stuff?
Well, going back to the idea of, like, mental health and the stigma, like, there has been a huge increase in seeking of mental health services. So when I was working as a therapist, during COVID, we had a huge increase and we were busier than ever. And I do think there were a lot of people, especially like in marriages, people were forced to be together more than they ever were before. And I think they were also forced to look at issues that maybe they didn't look at before or were swept under the rug. And so that did lead to a lot of, divorces or people seeking help, like, hey, we've got to figure this out.
As a parent, and you do kids, right? As a parent, when should you be concerned and say, okay, it's time for my child to see somebody? And obviously you want to nip it in the bud before it becomes a real problem. But are there certain signs parents can look for that aren't necessarily the obvious ones?
Sure. I think it depends. Like, as a parent, you probably know your child best. And so if your child is not acting like they normally are, like they normally do, as their personality, like if they're showing signs that they're anxious or if they're having trouble sleeping, if they're struggling in school, if they seem more sad or they're not eating, like, I think there are different things to look for. There are different things that therapists can help children with too, just even basic things as far as, like, how can I deal with my emotions? How can I work on social skills? there's such a wide spectrum. But I think, too, there's this misconception with kids that the child is the one that needs to come in and have the help. If you are a parent and you're wanting your child to have therapy, it's important to know as the parent that you're a big part of that as well. Right. Not that you're a part of the problem, but you're going to need to be able to be there as part of the treatment.
How often do you see kids getting misdiagnosed? Not necessarily by you, but by schools or parents rushing in and reading on the internet and then diagnosing.
I think that probably does happen. Just because there's so much information out on the internet, I think there's like a tendency to kind of like go to Google and try to figure out what is happening. So, I don't know necessarily the percentage, but I do think if you're concerned, making sure, you go to your doctor or you go to a therapist and kind of just make sure you are knowing exactly what is happening.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now with the LGBTQ, all that type of stuff. And has that increased the amount of, I hate to say amount of business you've had, but are people more open to coming and saying, am I just weird? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to downgrade that situation, but is there something wrong with me? Do you see people like that, and how can they deal with that type of situation?
Yeah.
What's normal? I guess there's not a normal or not. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah. Well, I think there's more. It's more talked about and a little more acceptance. But I do think there's also a huge stigma still out there. And so I'm very LGBTQIA plus friendly. And so those are conversations I'm very happy to have with individuals or clients. But I do think those are areas that are very still stigmatized for clients.
But that is something that you can. Gosh, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to get at. But people may think they're strange or weird or not normal, and
sure,
and they're just who they are.
Yeah. No. Yes. Oh. So yes, I think there's knowing that even if you feel different or you're seen as different, like feeling like it's okay to be who you are, and I think therapy can help with that. Like they can feel ostracized.
That's what or bullied or things along those lines that kids can, or even adults can feel they're on the outside looking in at life.
Yes.
And I think that could lead to some of the issues that we've talked about.
Sure.
Unless I'm wrong.
Sure.
You're the expert.
Yeah.
So on your site, the Gottman theory of
Gottman couples therapy.
Yeah. So what is that exactly?
So Gottman couples therapy was developed by John Gottman. And then he also, with his wife, Julie. And so in the 70s, he had what he called like a love lab. And so he's done a ton of research over the years. He had couples that would live together for a period of time, and they had cameras, and they would like videotape interactions as far as like when they would have fights or disagreements. And so he did a really good job of figuring out what are negative predictors in a relationship. Okay. And he's very well known in the field for kind of what makes a marriage work and what doesn't.
Okay.
And so I've done some training in his field, and that's something that I really like to use and incorporate in my couples therapy. So
you're a psychotherapist. Last question. Psychotherapist, right? Is there a difference between a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist?
Yes. Well, yes. So psychiatrist prescribes medication. They're a medical doctor. They have a medical degree.
Okay.
Psychologist has a doctorate, and they do testing.
Okay.
Psychological testing.
And a psychotherapist is?
Psychotherapist has at least a master's degree, and they do some type of like counseling therapy, talk therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you work with somebody as far as medication goes? If there's somebody you feel could benefit from medication, you say, hey, this would be a person for you to get with?
Yes, I mean, I don't have anybody right now that I refer to when I worked before.
But you make that, you say, hey, I think you could take advantage of XYZ.
Yes.
You might talk to your family practitioner or something.
Yes, yes. That's something that I do like to look at, because typically if somebody needs medication, therapy in combination with medication is usually the most effective if somebody needs it.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Nakita Hughes, and the name of the business, the name of your shingle is?
Healing Hearts Family Counseling.
To find more information,
You can go to my website at www.healingheartshannibal.com, and my phone number is 573-621-3116.
all right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Nakita. This has been the Business Spotlight, brought to you by Mercantile Bank, and I'm Ron Kinscherf for Muddy River News.
Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.
Muddy River News. Our home, our news.